Anyone that says Labour hasn't had anything other than a bad night, I reckon, is in denial. But let's...
In slavery and servitude under the Modern Slavery Act, so you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence.
I came here as a student. I don't need to work for me. I didn't come with her.
Act on instinct. Challenge the status quo. Be more like Trump. These aren't demands from a right-wing commentator. They're the words of Joe White, Labour MP and chair of the party's Red Wall Group. In a move that's sending shockwaves through Westminster, White has publicly turned on Keir Starmer, accusing him of failing the very voters Labour needs most. Meanwhile, as this internal Labour drama unfolds, a UN judge studying at Oxford has been jailed for keeping a woman as a slave in Britain. The exploitation case, involving Lydia Mugambi, exposes how power can be abused at even the highest levels. Two stories of failed leadership and accountability that reveal uncomfortable truths about today's Britain. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Joe White isn't your typical backbench MP. As the newly elected representative for Bassett Law and chair of Labour's Red Wall Group, she stands at the critical intersection between Labour's traditional working-class base and its increasingly metropolitan leadership. Her significance can't be minimised. She represents Labour's tenuous connection to the northern heartlands that once formed its core support. White's political journey shows she's never shied away from uncomfortable truths. Having secured her seat in a region where Labour support has steadily eroded, she brings direct knowledge of voter frustration that seems to fall on deaf ears at party headquarters.
Anyone that says Labour hasn't had anything other than a bad night, I reckon, is in denial. But let's...
Voters in Runcorn will get a chance in 4 years' time to deliver a verdict on whether their Reform MP has actually done anything for their area or not.
Her experience on the doorsteps of former Labour strongholds gives her insights that many in Westminster simply don't possess. The Telegraph article, where White criticised Starmer, marks a genuine rebellion within Labour ranks. She didn't merely express mild disagreement. She accused her own party leader of dithering, weakness, and political cowardice. This language breaks the unwritten code that MPs typically follow when discussing their leaders publicly. What truly raised eyebrows across Westminster was White's suggestion that Starmer should be more like Trump. She specifically called for him to act on instinct and challenge the status quo, qualities she believes are glaringly absent from his cautious, lawyer-like approach to leadership. The timing of White's rebellion couldn't be more pointed. Recent local elections saw Labour bleeding support across Red Wall constituencies, the very communities White represents, and where Reform UK is making significant inroads.
Well, Harry, I think the message from voters is clear. Voters want change. They voted for it last July. Reform MPs actually do any good at all for their areas, because so far Reform MPs have spent a lot of time not in their constituencies. And
these electoral warning signs add considerable weight to her criticisms. On policy specifics, White demands decisive action. She's calling for immediate public inquiries into grooming gangs, implementation of digital ID cards to tackle illegal immigration, and a reconsideration of policies affecting pensioners. These are all issues where Starmer has taken notably cautious positions, often frustrating voters looking for clear alternatives to the Conservatives.
And the results overnight have demonstrated that voters want to see change delivered further and faster and more of it. And in the places that we've done that,
it looks like they think that Reform are going to be the people to deliver that change. The Tories had 14 years and the voters don't seem too impressed with them.
The political gamble White is taking deserves recognition. By publicly criticising Starmer in such stark terms, she risks her own future within the party. This willingness to potentially sacrifice her political career suggests a genuine belief that Labour is losing touch with its founding purpose. Reform UK's recent victories highlight why White's concerns matter. Nigel Farage's party has now declared itself the real opposition after winning control of 9 local authorities and overturning significant Labour majorities in places like Runcorn. At its core, White's rebellion poses a fundamental question about Labour's identity. Is the party still connected to its working class roots, or has it become detached from the very communities it was founded to represent. The coming weeks will reveal whether White remains an isolated voice, or the first of many Red Wall MPs willing to challenge Starmer's leadership. While Labour confronts its internal divisions, another story reveals how power corrupts at society's highest levels. Lydia Mugambi, a 50-year-old Ugandan High Court judge pursuing a PhD in law at Oxford University, has been sentenced to 6 years in prison for keeping a young woman as a slave in Britain.
In slavery and servitude under the Modern Slavery Act, so you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence.
I came here as a student. I don't need to work for me. I didn't come with her.
The case exposes how prestigious positions and institutional connections enabled sustained exploitation that went unchallenged for far too long. Mugambe's status as a UN judge studying at one of Britain's most elite universities created a shield of respectability that masked her criminal behaviour. She systematically exploited a young Ugandan woman, preventing her from securing steady employment specifically so she could work as Mugambe's maid and provide childcare.
If you do not mention when questioned, something which later on in court,
Officer.
anything you do say may be used as evidence. Alright. So unfortunately I'm going to have to now arrest you on suspicion of keeping somebody in slavery and servitude.
The court determined that Mugambe deliberately took advantage of the victim's limited understanding of her employment rights in the UK. What makes this case particularly disturbing is how Mugambe operated within a network of influence. Court proceedings revealed she collaborated with John Leonard Mugawa, the Ugandan Deputy High Commissioner, in an illegal arrangement. Mugawa facilitated the victim's sponsorship to Britain, while Mugambe promised to influence a judge involved in legal action against Mugawa. This web of corruption demonstrates how institutional connections enable exploitation.
Sorry?
I am a judge in my country. I even have immunity. I am not a criminal.
You're a diplomat.
Yes.
So we'll need to see that then.
Yes.
And then we'll need to speak to the embassy if you are a diplomat.
When police finally moved to arrest Mugambe, her immediate response speaks volumes about how power distorts perception. She told officers, "I am a judge in my country. I even have immunity. I am not a criminal." And further claimed, "Yes, I have a diplomatic passport." This instinctive reach for immunity reveals how those in positions of authority often believe they exist above the very laws they're entrusted to uphold. The parallels between this case and Joe White's criticism of Starmer are striking. Both situations highlight questions of accountability and the failure of institutions to protect vulnerable people.
You've got immunity in this country?
Yes. I have a diplomatic passport. She asked me because she has worked at my home before. She asked me.
The criminal justice system's decision to jail Mugambe despite her status offers a rare example of powerful figures facing consequences. Precisely the kind of decisive action White argues is missing from political leadership today. Oxford University's involvement raises troubling questions about institutional oversight. How did someone studying law at one of the world's most prestigious institutions commit crimes that fundamentally violate the principles she was supposedly studying? This case exemplifies why White's call for more assertive leadership matters. When institutions fail to hold powerful people accountable, whether UN judges or grooming gangs, society's most vulnerable members suffer the consequences. The Mugambe case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about who our systems actually protect. Does justice apply equally to everyone, or do those with connections operate under different rules? Exactly the status quo White is urging Starmer to challenge. Joe White's revolt against Starmer places Labour at a crossroads. Her criticisms will either spark reform within the party or accelerate the fracturing of its traditional support base. The challenge couldn't come at a worse time for Starmer, with Reform UK's declaration as the real opposition following significant local election gains. Cases like Mugambe's only deepen public scepticism toward institutions. The true question isn't whether Starmer should emulate Trump's style, but whether he's actually hearing the frustrations of voters who feel abandoned by the political establishment. Starmer now faces a stark choice: address the concerns White represents, or watch Labour's heartland support continue to erode.